Corinth is one of those biblical places many Christians recognize before they truly understand it. We remember a troubled church. We remember Paul's letters about division, immorality, spiritual gifts, love, and the resurrection. We may even remember that Corinth was wealthy, influential, and morally confused, but the story begins before Paul writes a single letter, before the arguments, before the corrections, and before the famous words of 4 Corinthians 13. It begins with a missionary who is tired, discouraged, and afraid. That detail can easily disappear beneath Paul's reputation. We know him as the apostle who crossed seas, faced persecution, planted churches, and wrote letters that would shape Christian faith for centuries. Yet when he arrived in Corinth, he later admitted that he came in weakness and in fear and much trembling. So why would God send him there? Why place a weary servant in a city famous for ambition, religious pluralism, public status, commercial power, and moral compromise? Why choose Corinth as the birthplace of a church that would eventually struggle with nearly every problem a congregation can face? Answer is hidden in one sentence God spoke to Paul. During the night I have many people in this city. Those words changed the way we read the entire story. Paul saw resistance. God saw a harvest. Paul saw a city shaped by idols, competition, and appetite. God saw men and women who had not yet heard the gospel but would respond when they did. And perhaps the most important detail is that God did not wait for Paul to become fearless before using him. He met Paul in his fear. He did not shame him for trembling. He gave him a command, a promise, and a reason to remain. Stop being afraid. Keep speaking. I am with you. This week's lesson is not merely about the ancient history of Corinth or the background of 2 New Testament letters. It is about identity, calling, discouragement, and the unseen work of God. Asks us to consider whether the places we have judged too difficult may be the very places where God is already preparing people, and it invites us to look again at our own Corinth, the workplace, family, neighborhood, school, church, or community where faithfulness feels exhausting, and hear the same truth that kept Paul from leaving too soon. God was already in the city before Paul understood what he was doing. There, Paul's ministry in Corinth leaves us with more than a record of where he traveled, whom he met, and how long he stayed. It gives us a way to remain faithful when our surroundings appear stronger than our witness. Paul entered Corinth knowing that he had been sent. His identity did not depend on how the city received him. It did not rest on immediate results, public approval, or the absence of fear. He belonged to Christ, and that belonging gave him a foundation Corinth could not provide and could not take away. But Paul also needed to learn something about the city itself. He saw opposition, spiritual confusion, social ambition, and moral disorder. God saw people that difference in vision mattered. Paul judged the mission only by what was visible. He might have concluded that the ground was too hard. He might have confused resistance with failure. He might have interpreted fear as a sign that it was time to leave. Instead, God reminded him that the story of Corinth did not begin with Paul's courage. It began with God's presence. I am with you. And the future of the mission did not depend on Paul's ability to identify every person who would believe. I have many people in this city. Perhaps this is the truth we need to carry from this lesson. We are often tempted to evaluate faithfulness by what we can measure. We look for visible change, quick answers, open doors, and encouraging responses. When those things do not appear, we quietly assume that nothing is happening. But seeds are hidden before they become a harvest. There may be people around you whose questions have not yet been spoken. There may be hearts God is preparing in ways you cannot see. There may be conversations, acts of kindness, prayers, and ordinary examples of faith that will matter long after you have forgotten them. Your calling is not to control the harvest. Your calling is to remain faithful to the one who sent you. So do not let a difficult place tell you who you are. Do not let slow results convince you that God is absent. Do not mistake weariness for abandonment. You may feel weak and still be called. You may feel afraid and still keep speaking. You may be unable to see the other side and still trust that God is already there. Paul stayed because God showed him that Corinth was not empty of hope. And wherever your Corinth may be, the same God is able to see what you cannot. Be faithful where he has placed you. Speak with humility. Love people. Patiently keep Christ and him crucified at the center. Then leave the hidden work to God. He is already present in the city ahead of you.